Hello and welcome to Wake and Bake News. I'm looking at myself on the computer. And how are you today on this Friday? I'm Shampoo VTA, Kelly Davis, and I'm your host. Okay, so here I have the bong all ready to go. I had to stand it up on this cup in order for it to be in the shot at the beginning. That's why I was like lining up there. Darth Vader once again in the house. Nice big huge deep bowl. I got a really good show for you. Very, I thought, powerful, emotional show. I think it really expresses the frustration and terror and danger that patients face every day from the confusion of state, federal, and international laws. We have some news about a local bust, Ojai, of a 65-year-old man. And we have some very exciting information that the Senate has now moved to allow veterans to have access to medical marijuana in kind of sneaky way. They snuck it into a spending bill. And some really shocking video of a horrifying raid in North Carolina. It was just horrible. And some amazing commentary from a libertarian, I guess, showed out of LA that did like an hour-long show about marijuana. It was great. So I'm going to show some of that and link to his website so you can see the rest of it. But first, let's get to this video about Pennsylvania.
For Complex News, I'm Jinx. The push to legalize weed across all 50 states continues, with Pennsylvania set to back the use of medical marijuana. This past Wednesday, members of the House of Representatives voted in support of a bill that allows Pennsylvania residents to utilize marijuana for medicinal purposes. That means non-recreational, so hold off on your public smoke sessions. The outcome of the vote, which was 149 in favor to 64 in opposition, has now pushed the bill into its next phase, landing on the desk of Governor Tom Wolf. Naturally, many were happy following the vote that takes them one step closer to the decriminalization of weed, slowly chipping away at the stigma surrounding it.
Now, why this is really important is, of course, because this is the first time that the legislature has been mature enough to address this issue instead of this sort of stick our head in the sand, I don't want to have to deal with the police unions, and oh, by the way, I'm getting a ton of money from an oxycodone producer, pharmaceutical company, which I can't piss them off, So you have a ton of politicians that simply aren't interested in taking this issue on, and a lot of the reason is because it hurts their bottom line. The other reason this is important is because the reason why marijuana is Schedule 1 is that it shows no medical use. And clearly 24 states now disagree with that, and possibly 25 when Ohio does this. I'm starting to think there's some kind of, I don't know, a real political thing going on. I was thinking about it, especially watching this libertarian show. I was like, maybe the issue is that, people have left sort of these things behind. It's kind of like, arguing about whether it's okay to be and he does bring this up, whether it's okay to be somebody who doesn't believe in God, I almost said antichrist, anti-Christian, I don't know what you call it, but, which is fine, that's, of course, everybody should question whatever's going on. That would be only intelligent, to do that. It's only like magic and mystery and stories out of a book and stuff. You would have to be fucking crazy not to question that. I would have to think you were nuts not to question that. It only seems right, Atheist, that's the word I'm looking for. Anyway, so they're right that it is like being an atheist or something like that, it's not such a horrifying taboo subject for most people to talk about anymore. Interracial marriage, gay marriage. There's a ton of other things, transvestites. But there's still a large segment of the population that is sort of lost in these really old ways of looking at the world. And that change is going to be really hard on them. Like it was hard on, I was telling my husband, on my grandparents. I watched them go from being these World War II heroes and the greatest generation to being a bunch of old racists that didn't fit in anymore, you know. And it was true. They deserved that. They were racist. They thought it was patriotic at the time, and racism is not patriotism. Okay, that is not what patriotism is, and they kind of didn't get that. So they fought for a country that they wanted to be able to judge everybody at Kmart over, you know. This place is looking like Little Mexico, my grandfather was heard to say when I was about 7, and I was so incredibly embarrassed. See, I grew up in a world where most of my friends were Hispanic. Oh, I didn't even have the same accent they had after a while. They go, y'all come in the living room, we're going to watch some hee-haw. And I'm like, Valley girl. It was a generation gap even back then. It was bigger than the Grand Canyon. And today, it's devastatingly huge. Bonto. Now we get to a little virtual hit. I have some buds loaded here. Oh, where's me? Wait, wrong direction. Virtual hit off my pipe. Virtual hit off my pipe. One day it'll be in 3D. One day you will put on a mask. You will put on a headset. And you will look, and Kelly's room will be 3-dimensional. Someday, in our YouTube future, this is coming. And you will see around my house, which will be amazingly embarrassing. I don't care, really, I don't care. Fuck people that are judgmental, they're assholes. Okay, oh, must be nice to live a charmed life, is always my comment. Oh, must be nice to live a charmed life. Anyway, one day you'll put on this mask and everything will be 3-dimensional, and you'll be able to like look around my head, look as I take the hit, you know, or sound drone, or anybody, as a matter of fact, that's able to get a hold of this stuff. And probably it's not going to be that expensive to do. It's just like this camera, except it's going to be like 3 cameras around your head or around the room or something like that. I even saw they're going to incorporate your furniture into the game or something, or, you know, the space that you clear away in your living room, and maybe the chair is going to be like a bush or something. I don't know. It's going to be amazing. So someday the virtual toque will be very realistic. It'll be like you're really there. You know, very much like when somebody used the 3D camera so that you could actually smoke pot in front of the White House in that group of people because somebody held up a 3D camera. So now you can go to that video and click and turn and rotate the entire scene and look at all the people around you smoking pot, and you can see the park across from the White House and all the police, and you can look over and see the White House, and it's all, boom, 3D, and it's pee in the pool, so it's there as long as the video's there, and people can make copies and spread it around even more. So it's like people will be able to virtually toke in front of the White House forever, you know? Because it was done one time, it could be done a million times in virtual reality. It's like so interesting that we're about to create an entire other existence parallel to our real existence, and many things will take place in this alternate existence that will be like political and commerce and public opinion. And if you're not there and you're not represented, you're not heard. And that's going to happen. It'll be like you're trying to communicate to us with the ticker tape machine. Like, it's that noise, We'll be all gone in virtual reality. Okay, so let's go on to Ohio, which they brought up. And this amazingly hilarious police person that is calling everybody crooks and everything that's involved with medical marijuana. It was rather shocking that this was apparently his first concept of what was going on here was that everybody was a crook, and that's how they were making marijuana cure cancer or something. And he spouted, I don't know, something about they're making it work because they're making money off of it. And I'm like, so they're making it cure cancer because they're crooks. What? So let's listen to this special moment.
House is rolling out its own medical marijuana is a hot button issue, and this week the Ohio House is rolling out its own proposal on this, adding to initiatives brought forth by pro-marijuana groups.
Putting its own plan in the mix. 9 on Your Side's Jay Warren spoke to one outspoken critic of these proposals. Jay has the story all new at 5.
For Sheriff Richard Jones, the issue is really quite clear. Legalizing marijuana in any form is a can of worms you don't want to open. According to polls, there is solid support for medical marijuana in the state of Ohio. And this week, legislators, in an effort to control the process, put forth their own legislation.
I think it'll be a screwed up mess, and there's more than one legislator that wants to put this together.
Butler County Sheriff Richard Jones takes a hard line when it comes to the issue.
Right now, I'm not supporting any of these issues. I'm going to be against them, and it'll be up to the voters that will decide.
Jones says that in conversations with his inmates, they all tell him that marijuana was a drug they started abusing first.
And here we are looking at legalizing another step closer. Why don't we legalize heroin and help people with their heroin addiction and give them heroin? I mean, where's it going to stop?
Questions legislators are still grappling with are whether to allow people to grow their own and whether it could be prescribed in a form you could smoke. They are all non-starters for Jones.
There's a bunch of greedy bastards that make this work, and it's money for them, and it's greed.
Lastly, Jones says that his role is not to make law, but to enforce law, and ultimately this will go to the people to decide. Jay Warren, 9 on Your Side, Hamilton.
Now, there's a bunch of stuff I love that this guy says. He says that there are a bunch of greedy bastards that are making this work because of greed. Of course, that has nothing to do, of course, with the police's greed, where they get to have this reciprocity or whatever, so they swipe stuff from people based on drug raids and steal their property and their house and their car and their money and cash and everything like this, and then send part off to the federal government as in their like pirate-like scheme where they raid ships as they go by. So apparently we're not talking about that form of greed. Now we're talking about politicians at the legislature that are greedy, and he's butthurt about that. This is fascinating. The other thing I found fascinating was that he just merrily skipped into comparing heroin to marijuana. Wow, was that a leap of logic? I mean, that's like it's comparing it to arsenic, or radioactive material or nuclear fusion. Talk about pimping some reason right there. And some of his other reasons were barely understandable. Like, for instance, that there are more than one legislature involved in this or wanting to get involved with this or draft this. First off, you should articulate whatever the hell that was supposed to mean. What am I supposed to get from there's more than one guy interested in getting this passed? You're asking me to read a hell of a lot in there. I don't get it. Whatever you're trying to say, I don't get it, you know. But the part where everybody was a crook, I love that. Or greedy. That just was hilarious. Really what you're seeing here is a power struggle between the people that have been able to make money off the drug war and profiteer off the drug war, and now they're upset because someone has figured out how to pry that open and allow other people to make money, and some of that money drift up to the legislature, or into the schools or into other places that they need. And those police unions and drug enforcement task forces, they don't like that, because they really consider this to be an attack on their revenue source and their power. And it is. It is almost Roman, because what I believe is happening is that these legislators are using this as a way to take an a force of, let's see, how do I say this, civilian police enforcement that has gotten too big for its britches and too powerful, and is starting to suckle now off of people at higher levels. And those people are like, no, no. Like, for instance, when Dianne Feinstein found out that the very people that she allowed to spy on normal Americans were spying on her subcommittee or whatever for, the military, and she was pissed off about it and wanted them to stop. But it was perfectly okay to unleash those forces on us. This is classic. It has happened at least twice throughout history. The force that is the police force, the military force, eventually gets too hungry and can no longer be fed, because they're going to take too much. It's a predator, okay, on the Serengeti that's over hunting the Serengeti and creating imbalance. And so now that situation has to be rectified. And actually, it's their own greed and need for money and power that will create these situations more and more. It will backfire, because you just attract more attention. You don't flail in the tar pit, and this is flailing. That man was flailing. Calling people greedy and stuff like that without any sort of basis in fact is actually slander, you know. And he's a police officer. You'd think he would know that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to this amazing letter that's gone viral that was sent to Justin Trudeau, which of course he and the health ministers in Canada have not responded to, because everybody's just dragged their feet about every flippin' thing, because it isn't their flippin' problem, it's ours. So they don't care. If it was their kid or something that had epilepsy or seizures, you bet they'd move their stupid ass. But because it isn't their family, I don't even think a member of Trudeau's family uses medical marijuana, and he still ain't doing shit. That's cold. That's cold-blooded. That's like, you know how Dick Cheney's daughter's gay, yet he don't support homosexuality or gay marriage or gay rights or anything. Even his own daughter, boop boop, under the bus. You know? That's what this is like. It's like medieval times or something, the way kings used to fear their own sons because they didn't want their throne usurped or something. This is creepy power stuff that goes on with super powerful, weird people that find that all to be important for some reason. Okay, so let's take a look at this. When I copied and pasted the URL for this story into Tumblr, this image appeared as the, attached to the URL. And I found myself asking, what is that plant they are showing? because I don't believe that that is marijuana. Now, I had no idea that the restrictions on showing marijuana were so stringent in Canada that they had to substitute a different plant. I don't know what's going on there. In the actual story, they're able to show marijuana plants, but for some reason here they're showing this bizarre, I don't know what it is. I was super touched at the end by this letter because it is heartbreaking to think. I had a friend who, he's not a friend right now, but we had an argument. But, he lost his son to a seizure. And to think that that child could have been saved. And he's, independent and he's not sure if he agrees with legal marijuana. If someone like a time traveled from the future and came back and told him they killed your child, they could have saved your child, and had absolute proof, imagine how that person would feel. I think that that's what they fear most, is that they know what they've done, and it's more than horrific. It's like marching people into an oven or something, because you just don't believe in their faith, or you don't like the way they live or the way they look, or for some stupid ass dumb reason you fear them. So you end up becoming this horrible, monstrous thing, devouring them and living off of human suffering. It's sickening. I don't even see how you can come out of it with any honor intact whatsoever in the end at all. I think that's why we get this feeling towards the end of this battle of this almost desperate lashing out, which is another good example here. President of Ojai Medical Marijuana Cooperative arrested. This man is 65 years old. And they have leveled a ton of felony charges against him, like money laundering and crazy shit like this, because of this lunacy that is going on with the prohibitionists right now. They're flailing in the tar pits like you just see the desperation. Their eyeballs are popping out of their heads. They're just going to start grabbing children off the street and 65-year-old men and, mothers and wives and who knows what other innocent people. They're just going to start desperately trying to grasp at with their needy hands, I must bust it. I must win. It's frightening. These people are frightening. So let's take a look at this really sad story about this insane bust in Ojai. If you've ever been to Ojai, nothing happens in Ojai. It's an art community. These guys are acting like this is some kind of major fucking federal crime. It's a 65-year-old guy. I mean, oh boy, that's a bust to be proud of. You went and busted a senior citizen. You're a hero. I guess that makes me feel safer or something. What is the matter with you? VC County Star, Ventura County Star, Ojai, president of Ojai Medical Marijuana Cooperative, arrested. Authorities said Thursday they arrested the president of an Ojai Medical Marijuana Cooperative they said was raided last year in connection with more than 40 criminal counts. Jeffrey Kroll, 65, was booked into county jail on the felony and misdemeanor charges, Ventura County Sheriff's Office Captain Jeremy Paris said. Kroll is president of the Shangri-La Care Cooperative, which was able to operate under guidelines set forth by the state's Medical Marijuana Program Act and Proposition 215. Little does the sheriff care. Another man connected to the cooperative also was arrested, Paris said. That man's name was not given. According to the jail records, The 44 counts faced by Kroll include felony money laundering and felony failure to file an income tax return. Other felony charges include cultivation of marijuana, possession of marijuana for sale, transportation of marijuana, manufacturing concentrated cannabis, theft from an elder by use of license to defraud and maintaining a place for using and selling a controlled substance, jail record showed. The misdemeanor charges included distributing packaged food drug with improper labeling, adulterating food drug, misbranding food drugs, manufacturing drugs without a license, and operating a collective within 600 feet of the innocent little children at a school, according to jail records. Man, bunch of idiots. The bail was set at $250,000, and he is due in court at 1:30 p.m. Monday. In an interview with the Star earlier this year about medical marijuana dispensaries in the county, Sheriff Captain Kurt Rothschiller said that the raid at the Ojai cooperative was conducted as part of an investigation into allegations the cooperative was violating state guidelines. Oh yeah, sure, that's what it was. Weeks after the October 6th raid, Rothschiller said the law allows cooperative members to grow and share a certain amount of marijuana among themselves, but not outside the group. They also may deliver medical marijuana to members. However, cooperatives are only allowed to charge enough to cover the cost of growing the marijuana and cannot make a profit. And even though they just changed that law in California and the governor signed it. But let's go on and just pretend like this guy knows what he's talking about. In a previous interview with the Star, Kroll said authorities raided the cooperative offices and his home, taking medical information from hundreds of members and samples of cannabis. He also said the group's bank accounts and some of his personal accounts had been frozen. Shangri-La has denied any wrongdoing. Ojai city manager at the time of the raid, Robert Clark, said that the cooperative had a business license with the city to operate and a horticulture social club. Shangri-La was permitted to test small amounts of marijuana for impurities. Clark previously said in a 3-2 vote, the Ojai City Council in October approved moving forward with a formal request to unseal a search warrant and any supporting documents related to the raid. About that same time, Rothschiller said the case was bigger than just Shangri-La and that a judge ordered the search warrant and affidavit to be sealed. Yeah, I smell a big fat rat in this one, boy. There's something stinketh in Ventura County with the sheriffs. You know, is it a mystery that there's so many, all the county bans marijuana and they're pissed as hell at Ojai for allowing it? I mean, there is something fishy, corrupt going on here.
Now, really, this is all about the psychotic behavior that the prohibitionists have in Ventura County. They're insane, and they're very out of step with most normal people, you know. So they're trying desperately to keep these stories kind of on the D-low now, because they used to just broadcast big bust in Ventura County of a major marijuana grow. Now it's like, you know, because they know damn well that it's starting to just reek up the room. The room is reeking with, what are you really getting out of this? Because it's getting a little weird. You're busting 65-year-old dudes now. This is not like, you just got to wonder what the hell's going on. You really do, you know. And it gets even worse. Here's a bust in North Carolina where they completely ignored people's right to privacy and the sovereignty of their home, and they use a completely warrantless entry into these people's houses and step all over their rights as citizens. And what I'm here to say is they're doing it to Black people, but they'd love to do it to all of us. They want to jackboot right up inside your house, take your car, your kids, everything, and put it all up for auction. OpposingView.com Society. North Carolina police smell marijuana in home and chaos follows, with video. Police in Durham, North Carolina entered a home April 8th because they allegedly smelled marijuana. The situation soon dissolved into chaos and was filmed by one of the residents. Vera McGriff, video below. According to Indie Week, McGriff posted the video on Facebook. The posting has since been removed, along with a note that said the police came to her door and demanded to search her house. McGriff allegedly refused because the officers lacked a search warrant, but then 8 cops bum-rushed her home. We all sat in handcuffs for 4 to 5 hours while they waited for the search warrant. McGriff reportedly wrote on Facebook, everybody was tased. One officer hit my son in the face with his Glock 9. We were choked, kicked, thrown down on the floor, she added. In the police warrant, Officer J.M. Foster said another cop gave him information about Kahardir Cherry, a resident who had been arrested April 4th for allegedly selling marijuana. Notes News and Observer. Foster said that he was doing a follow-up when he saw Raynal Hall in the driveway. Foster told Hall that he wanted to speak to the homeowner. When Hall opened the door to walk inside the residence, Foster recalled, through my training and experience, I knew that the only thing that smelled like marijuana is marijuana. The police seized the house and did a safety sweep for suspects. Cherry was in the home where there was allegedly marijuana joints and water pipe and cigar wrappers. Tobacco had been removed from the cigars and was going to be replaced with marijuana, according to Foster. Will Glenn, a spokesman for the police department, wrote in a statement, in order to execute the arrest during a volatile scene, officers deployed a taser on Mr. Hall, and an officer struck Mr. Cherry with a baton in the area between the hip and the knee. There were multiple charges against Hall, Cherry, McGriff, and Jahan Sidano. I can't read that. Cherry was the only person charged with drug-related crimes, 2 counts of possession with intent to manufacture, sell, and or distribute, and possession of marijuana paraphernalia. The Durham Police Department is investigating all matters concerning this incident, including the use of force, which is standard protocol, Glenn added.
Calm down. Everybody calm down. Don't worry. Don't worry. I know.
He just hit me in the head with a gun.
I know that. It don't make no sense. Yeah? This don't make no sense. Don't worry. I'm taking this to the mayor. I never seen nothing like this. Marshawn, hey! Be quiet. Everybody be quiet. be quiet. Everybody be quiet.
Can I talk to somebody? Is anyone willing?
In a minute, let me keep seeing them. They up in my kids' room. This is ridiculous. You don't just invade somebody's house, somebody smoking weed. We on private property. So fucking what is somebody smoking some weed inside their home? No, let them go ahead. Wait, calm down. Calm down.
He hit me with a gun.
I saw that. This goes on the news. Shut up. I'm gonna put this on the news. Just shut up.
Sweetheart, you're right. It's on Wake and Bake News.
Jamon, be quiet. I'm gonna put this on the news. I'm gonna call Channel 11. Y'all be quiet.
Listen, you just said y'all been.
Let them go ahead. Let them go ahead.
Okay.
I didn't say that. I said you said that y'all busting the house, that y'all smell weed. I don't smell no weed. I don't even smell no weed. I don't smell no weed. It could be my incense burning. I'm not even trying to hear that. I'm not even trying to hear it. Show me where the weed at. Show me where the weed at.
Okay, that's fine. Everybody needs to get this open. They do it now.
Wait. You gotta get on my hand. You do not have to touch my arm. You do not have to. You need to. Don't touch my phone. Wait, get off my phone. What you doing? I didn't do nothing. I'm working at the hospital. Wait. Oh, shit. I cannot believe it. Wait, get off of me. Oh, my God.
You notice the only people that bring violence, the only people that bring weapons, the only people that bring death is the police. They are death now. God, it's so heartbreaking to realize you can't even trust law enforcement anymore.
So, because they thought someone was in the home and they supposedly smelled marijuana, and this is exactly what was reported recently about what Nixon wanted from the drug war. He wanted the police to have the right to break people's rights, the rights that we fought against the redcoats for, because this is what the redcoats used to do. The British would come and take over your home and turn it into a garrison, maybe rape your wife, maybe kill the husband, drive the children into the woods, take all of your livestock, because you were a British citizen and they could do whatever they wanted to because King George said so. And here, and his greedy ass sitting in England, fucking taking all the profits. And here we are again. People breaking into homes without warrant. This is exactly what our forefathers fought against. And here it is up in our face. And just because it's a black person, though, don't think they wouldn't do it to you if they could. They would love to. And the more inches you give them, the closer they get to being able to take your rights. So if you're some kind of asshole racist and you think this is not about you, you're just higher in the food chain, but they're getting to you. The more you give away to them, the closer they get to you. You protect that shoreline because that's what keeps the storm from hitting you. You protect those poor communities from this intrusion so it is not visited upon you. Because once you give it away, you can never get it back. Now I'd like to play an interesting segment about some of these raids in California and, a state that's legal and is not as violent or perniciously racist as North Carolina, but certainly has many of the same stigmatisms and is using this enforcement as a way to jackboot their way through people's lives. So let's take a look at some of this really interesting piece from the Rubin Report.
It has so many benefits and has never killed anyone. I mentioned that at the top. I've never murdered anyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's yet to happen.
But it still boggles my mind that a plant, first of all, that has so many medicinal properties, and besides medicine, I mean, what about, renewable energy and, paper, I mean, it's strong. It's a strong fiber. I mean, it can replace so many things. The fact that we look at it as such an evil thing, I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell it truly boggles the mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right, so we have THC, CBD, and then you have the indica and the sativa and the hybrids of that. So for the medicinal stuff, let's just do that first. People, if you didn't want to get stoned, but you just wanted medicinal benefits, that's where you would use just the CBD. Is that right?
Okay, CBD, yes, you want that. But there's been a lot of research that shows that CBD alone is not as effective as when you mix it with THC, meaning that it's the whole plant that you want to treat you with, not just taking, one piece of it. Mm-hmm. I think it's referred to as the entourage effect, because there's so many elements and they all kind of work together. So people who are looking for CBD are usually looking for CBD-rich strains, or in some cases, like the concentrates and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I think for the most part, you'll find that they're more effective when there is a little THC in there.
Yeah. So when you found the right one for you, well, first off, how long did it take for you to find the weed that was like, oh, these migraines are done?
Yeah, I didn't even think about weed as a treatment for my migraines, because when I get bad migraines, I would get very nauseous, dizzy. Smoking pot was the last thing I thought would help me, really. But then I did read that it helps, and for me, it relaxes me enough that, I mean, it helps the nausea, and also it helps me control the anxiety that comes along with the onset of a migraine. I don't know if you've
So it's like two things attacking you at once. You have the migraine, but then knowing it's coming, now you're suddenly anxious about that.
Yes.
And the weed can kind of hit both of those things.
It treats both of those things. Yeah.
All right, so then you started doing that. It was working. When did you say, all right, I could make a business out of this, or I gotta tell people what's going on here?
Well, a friend of mine was baking, and I was fascinated by it. And so I would look up recipes and send them to him. You should try this, you should try that. And he got to the point where he said, you know what, Angel? You should try it. So I started experimenting, and that's how I got introduced to making edibles. And then I started trying them because, well, honestly, I tried a few edibles and hated them. I mean, this is going back to like 2008 or something. I mean,
so this is before they had perfected the brownies and the cookies.
Exactly.
And else.
I mean, at that time, you'd go to a dispensary and you'd see stuff that was just in like Ziploc bags and, totally unappetizing to look at, and oftentimes didn't taste very good. And I mean, I found myself in those early days just sort of like, eating it real quick and just hoping for the best.
Right. When now it's like, literally, it's like going into a great bakery.
Oh, you can get anything. Pizzas, sauces, sodas.
Chocolate bars, candy, anything you can think of.
Yeah.
So you started making this, and it was really for yourself, and then you started selling it. How quickly did you realize there were going to be some legal issues, even in California, where it is legal?
Well, right away. Right away. I mean, there's still such a problem with perception, first of all. So, okay, California was the first to allow for medical marijuana. It's been that way for about 20 years. But beyond doing that, there really aren't any regulations established. So it's like the Wild West, or it has been like that. And there are a lot of people who want to do the right thing, want to operate in a safe way, but without guidelines, without regulations, you can't really do that. And you know, because of the perception problem, because of the stigma problem, and because there are no clear laws, dispensaries are still being attacked, closed down, shut down, and
so literally, I mean, you're not making this up. Dispensaries in California, there was a dispensary maybe 5 blocks away from me that about 6 months ago was closed down. It was legal within the California set of laws, but federally, because it's not legal, the feds pretty much at any time could come in and stop you, right?
Right. Look, I'm at risk.
Right.
You know?
We have no feds watching. Don't worry about that. We block it.
Yeah, but and it's not even just, it's not that I mean, I guess that is the case in some instances, that the feds do come in and shut them down, but even local, you know, municipalities are going in and shutting down places because they're using land use codes to evict people and threaten their landlords and shut places down.
Yeah. So how do you operate, knowing that that's sort of out there? It's a very precarious position to be in as a business person, right?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's a business, but for me, it's primarily a passion project. You know, I do this because it means a lot to me to be in the industry and to help change perspectives on it. I know that, or I believe that a lot of people who are anti-marijuana are really just misinformed. You know, there's been a lot of negative propaganda, and it's going to take some time to get good, real information out to people.
Yeah, this is sort of like, for people that are pro-marijuana, not even recreational, but even medicinally, this is sort of the fault of, you've had the government which scared people about marijuana, right? You can think of those posters in the 60s, you know, just like making everyone look evil, smoking weed. And then even the Hollywood side of things, Hollywood, which is obviously very liberal and pro-drug generally, but every movie related to pot is just a bunch of goofballs doing ridiculous things, so it makes it seem like it's going to make you dumb or stupid or something like that. There's really nothing in between those two places, which is, well, I guess this is between those two places.
You'd be surprised at how many of us really fall in between. You're
saying most people aren't the extremes? I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's just that people are afraid to come out, and rightly so, because it is still federally illegal, and there is still this stigma attached to it. When I was working full-time in the corporate world, I definitely kept my use private because I didn't want to be judged. I didn't feel ashamed, but I didn't want anyone to use that information against me.
Now, some of these people, apparently, that the police are going to be stomping all over, are going to be military veterans that have been given the right to use medical marijuana in the state of California, and now by senators who moved to give veterans access to medical marijuana in a subcommittee on Thursday, passed an amendment that would let Veteran Affairs doctors discuss and recommend marijuana as a potential medical treatment in states where it is legal, such as California. So is the Sheriff's Department going to go and bust veterans now? Because they're treating their PTSD, or they're trying to run a dispensary for other veterans? This is just going to go south so fast on everybody. And it's going to start looking so ugly. The Senate Appropriations Committee on Thursday passed an amendment that would let Veterans Affairs doctors discuss and recommend marijuana. That does not mean they are prescribing it. They still can't have it anywhere on any sort of federal property or land or whatever the hell. You know, so there's still all these ridiculous You know, just kind of lame little, you know, dams and eddies and stuff. They put up little dams like little beavers trying to stop up the river, but whatever. It's going to get torn down. One good storm and it's gone. So let's take a look. Military Times. Senators move to give veterans access to medical marijuana. The Senate Appropriations Committee on Thursday passed an amendment that would let Veterans Affairs doctors discuss and recommend marijuana as a potential medical treatment in states where it is legal. In addition to the fiscal 2017 Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and Related Agencies Appropriation Bill, the bipartisan amendment sponsored by Senator Stephen Daines, Republican Montana, and Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat Oregon, would let VA doctors discuss marijuana as a potential medical treatment, similar to the allowance given civilian physicians in medical marijuana states. The move marks the second time senators have tried to improve access to medical marijuana for veterans who are treated at VA medical facilities and want to use marijuana for medical purposes. The provision was approved by a full Senate last November in the fiscal year 2016 VA Operations Bill, but was stripped from the final law. Under the amendment, VA would be prohibited from using funds to interfere with the ability of veterans to participate in medical marijuana programs approved by state or deny services to such veterans. In January 21, lawmakers wrote VA Secretary Bob McDonald urging him to allow doctors to discuss and recommend marijuana. The group includes 19 Democrats and 2 Republicans, wanted VA to abandon a policy that prohibits physicians from discussing the drug, which is still illegal under federal law. 23 states and the District of Columbia have legalized medical marijuana, and 17 states have laws allowing physicians to prescribe oils derived from marijuana plants. Daines emphasizes that the amendment would not change any laws preventing the possession or dispensing of marijuana on VA property. It was adopted by a committee in a 20-10 vote. The VA recommends that its physicians use evidence-based practices, therapies proved by scientists, research to be effective, to treat mental and physical health conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and pain. There has been no research in the U.S. on effectiveness of medical marijuana for relieving symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder or other conditions, although some veteran groups and marijuana legalization advocates say it does help relieve symptoms of combat-related PTSD and anxiety. Ah, my lighter. Where'd my lighter go? Oh, there it is. Hiding behind my cookska. Look, I'm working on another project. A cookska. I'm hollowing it out. In here, it's getting thinner. See? This is called a cookska. Supposed to be something you're supposed to get good at, you know, for bushcraft. It's pretty cool, huh? Okay, it's made out of birch wood. I had to go find a piece of birch wood. I finally found somebody cut down a limb behind the music store, and I was like, yes, cookska. So I went back with a hacksaw and cut it in half and threw it in the back of my car because it was over by the trash can. Like, oh, I found the right wood. All right, so fascinating story. Now we're going to go on to
this exciting thing that's going on with the UN. Hundreds of global figures have written to the UN to say that they need to bring an end to the disastrous war on drugs. So let's take this bong toke, take a look at that. Boom, 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 boom.
TheIndependent.com.uk. Hundreds of global figures call for an end to disastrous war on drugs. World consensus on the war on drugs is starting to fray. World leaders gathering in New York next week for a special United Nations summit to review the organization's nearly 20-year campaign to rid the world of illegal drugs are being urged to reverse course and acknowledge that worldwide prohibition has caused more harm than good. The message has been delivered in an unprecedented open letter to the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon from more than 1,000 prominent figures from the world of politics, activism, and entertainment. The effort was orchestrated by the Drug Policy Alliance, which has led efforts to challenge Western policies of criminalizing the possession, use, and distribution of drugs. Signatories include 3 U.S. Senators, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, and presidential runner Bernie Sanders, businessman Warren Buffett, George Soros, Richard Branson, Barry Diller, actors Michael Douglas, Woody Harrelson, as well as several former world leaders, among them the ex-president of Mexico and Britain's former deputy prime minister, Nick Clegg. Urged on by the United States and Europe governments, the UN formally committed itself to in 1998 to eliminate illegal drugs worldwide within 10 years. The widely impractical goal, to say the least, a backlash movement has grown steadily in recent years, which holds that prohibition, rather than helping the world, has created vast and powerful criminal networks, an endless cycle of violence, with Mexico being exhibit number 1, not to mention crooked police officers or racist ones. Meanwhile, several countries have seen a new and increasingly open debate about abandoning old anti-drug dicta. I guess that's what it says. Notably, regarding cannabis, including Britain, even the United States has seen a crumbling of the national consensus of banning marijuana, which is now legal in several states. Medical marijuana is now legal in 24 states. And I guess legal marijuana is like 4 or 3 in the District of Columbia or something. The drug control regime that emerged during the last century has proven disastrous for global health, security and human rights, the letter said. Focused overwhelmingly on criminalization and punishment, it created a vast illicit market that has enriched criminal organizations, corrupted governments, triggered explosive violence, distorted economic markets, and undermined basic moral values. Governments devoted disproportionate resources to repression at the expense of efforts to better the human condition. Tens of millions of people, mostly poor and racial and ethnic minorities, were incarcerated, mostly for low-level and nonviolent drug law violations, with little, if any, benefit to public security. The special session, which will open on 19th April, will fall far short of what the signatories to the letter are asking for. However,
it is likely to be a milestone meeting nonetheless, if, as seems certain, it's for the first time offers a platform to those willing at least to question the wisdom of current policy. The session has brought forward 2 years at the was brought forward 2 years at the request of Mexico, Guatemala, and Colombia, 3 countries on the forefront of the narcotics conflict. That is to say that the issue does not remain very delicate for many governments. Activists demanding a change in direction were disappointed this week when the president of Mexico, Enrique Peña Nieto, canceled plans to attend last November. The Mexican Supreme Court ruled that current prohibition laws in the country violates the civil rights of its citizens. The president is putting his head in the sand, said Lisa Sanchez of the pro-legalization group Mexico United Against Crime. The government is sending worrying signals that it is not interested in the issue of drugs. The cancellation of the president's participation is another sign that he doesn't care and doesn't want to debate and doesn't want to take a stand. But the signatories to the letter hope to at least they will help force the UN to acknowledge that the drug elimination goal is set itself in 1998 is either neither viable nor helpful. The influence and diversity of the leaders who signed this letter is unprecedented, said Ethan Nettleman, Executive Director of the Drug Policy Alliance. Never before have so many respected voices joined together in calling for fundamental reform of drug control policies.
So that's super exciting news. You know, it's really cool that we're moving into this next phase, which is the major boss battle, where we're going to have to, you know, we need the other countries to come in and say that America is basically being hypocritical by allowing legalization in their own country, but then wanting other countries to enforce drug laws that they came up with, see? So, you stay high and goodbye, and we'll have to see what comes of the UN meeting next week. And so I'll see you tomorrow. Let's see if I can get you to focus in on, ooh, look at magic. Ah. Line it up right, Kelly. There you go. Oh, magic. All right, so I'll see you tomorrow. Adios.